Satyachaiva vivastitim Kamsastushtasmanarajan Prahasanidam abravit. Do you want to chant?
Drishtva samatvam chore
Satyachaiva vivastitim
Kansastushtamarajan Rahasan idam abravit.
Hare Krishna. Yes, yes. What? First line. Are you confident?
Drashtva samatvam tat chore.
Samatvam tatchore
Satyachaiva vyavastitim
Satyachaiva vivastitim
Kamsastushtamarajan Rahasan idam abravit.
abravit.
Drishtva samatvam tatchore Satyachaiva vyavastitim
Manarajan
Rahasan idam abravit.
Word meanings. Drishtva, by seeing. Samatvam, being equipoised. Undisturbed in distress or happiness. Tat, that. Shorehe, of Vasudeva. Satye, in truthfulness. Cha, indeed. Eva, certainly. Vivastitim, the firm situation. Kangsaha, Kangsa. Trushtamanaha, being very satisfied with Vasudev's behavior in delivering the first child to keep his promise. Rajan, O Maharaj Parikshit, Prahasan, with a smiling face. Idam, this, Abravit, said. My dear King Parikshit, when Kamsa saw that Vasudev, being situated in truthfulness, was completely equipoised in giving him the child, he was very happy. Therefore, with a smiling face, he spoke as follows. Purport. The word samatvam is very significant in this verse. Samatvam refers to one who is always equipoised, unaffected by either happiness or distress. Vasudeva was so steadily equipoised that he did not seem in the least agitated when delivering his firstborn child into the hands of Kamsa to be killed. In Bhagavad Gita 256, it is said, Dukeshva anuvigda mana sukeshu vigata spriha. In the material world, one should not be very eager to be happy, nor should one be very much disturbed by material distress. Lord Krishna advised Arjuna, Matra Sparshas, Dukunteya Sitoshna Shupadukada, Agama Pahino Nityas Tam Statikshasva Bhavita. Oh, son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Sayana Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. The self-realized soul is never disturbed by so-called distress or happiness. And this is especially true of an exalted devotee like Vasudeva, who showed this by his practical example. Vasudeva was not at all disturbed when delivering the first child to Kamsa to be killed. Mukam karoti vachalam pangulangai te girim yakkapadam aham vande Shri Guru Dinatara Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivashvati Gaura. So there are two things going on. One is realization. Vasudeva, he's a realized soul, Krishna's father, so he's not disturbed. And the other thing is practice. We are disturbed, but we have to tolerate. So tolerance is for people who are not transcendental. Otherwise, there's nothing to tolerate because you're not affected. So, we can say here that Vasudeva and all pure devotees generally are transcendentally situated and therefore not affected by the dualities of this world. But in the Gita, because Arjuna is playing the part of ordinary person, Krishna says you have to tolerate, as this verse says. Because, have you noticed you can't have happiness without distress? It just comes, right? You get something, you lose something. Something good happens today, but it's not always good. So Krishna is saying, if you do not learn how to tolerate the dualities of this world, you can't really become Krishna conscious, because this world is going to push you. And if the world is pushing you, then you're not properly situated to make progress in spiritual life, because you have to be the one controlling your life, your mind, your senses. And if the world is pushing you around, it means you're completely controlled by your distress, your failure. Then even interestingly, Krishna says you're controlled by your happiness. Because if you get, something good happens materially, you become so happy. But Krishna says there's no happiness in this world, so it's a kind of an illusion. But more importantly, if we don't learn how to tolerate happiness, we won't learn how to tolerate distress. So Krishna says tolerate happiness, which nobody's going to understand. Right? Who would understand that? Go tell somebody, give them a book and say, this is a book about tolerating happiness. And they're going to say, why should I tolerate happiness? And then you'll say, because if you can't tolerate happiness, you won't be able to tolerate distress. And they'll go, oh, that's profound. And you say, yes. It's all explained in this book. So we hear of two things in Shastra. We hear of the self-realized souls who are transcendental to the dualities of this world, and they're unaffected by it. So that sense, they don't have to practice tolerance because there's nothing that bothers them. We have to practice tolerance. Now, an interesting thought, there's so many things in this world to disrupt us. And sometimes something horrible happens and we become completely depressed or miserable or angry, or what else do we become? Frustrated. Sometimes we lose faith in Krishna. How could you allow that to happen? So many things. And that's like one event sometimes can completely destroy us. One event, right? My relative got in an accident. Krishna, how could you allow this to happen? They're in IC, they may not live. You're going completely nuts. You can't chant your rounds. You don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. And you can't stop being miserable. Has that ever happened? If it hasn't, it will. Don't worry. It's for these times that Krishna is saying, this is when you need to learn tolerance. And tolerance means I'm being affected. Otherwise, why do you have to tolerate it if you're not being affected? My grandmother died. She probably went back to Godhead Haribol. Feed me some pakoras. You don't need to tolerate. You're not affected. It's only when you're affected you need to tolerate. So, as you know, there are so many things in this world to tolerate. Why couldn't Krishna just make this world just easy? Nothing to tolerate, everything's easy. There's no scorching heat, there's no freezing cold, there's no extreme happiness, no distress, no major successes, no major failures. Why couldn't everything just be shanti, shanti, no trouble, right? If there's no trouble, how do you learn to tolerate? And Krishna says, if you learn to tolerate, you become qualified to go back to Godhead. So we don't like this world, but Krishna created this world to teach us how to be Krishna conscious. And one of the ways we learn to be Krishna conscious is by facing things that are difficult. Then second canto, Prabhupada says, Krishna wants to see how painstaking his devotee is, like what he will tolerate. And if you ever have to tolerate something, just think, now I can show my bhakti to Krishna, because this is really difficult. And I just feel like giving up or screaming or whatever. But I'm not going to do that. And I have an opportunity now to show Krishna that even if things are difficult, I won't give up your service. So that's a beautiful opportunity. Even if things are difficult, I will learn to tolerate them. So that because if I don't tolerate them, then it affects my bhakti, affects my consciousness, affects my service, right? Prabhu, can you do your service? No, why not? My grandmother died yesterday. I can't handle it. Well, what are you going to do today? Sleep. I'll either sleep all day or eat all day, or maybe both. Or maybe I'll just do nothing. Or maybe I'll just take a walk for 10 hours. I'm so upset. I don't know what to do. Now you have an opportunity to say, Krishna, in spite of this suffering I'm going through, I'm not going to give up your service. You know the story of Arjuna. He lost five sleeping sons of the Pandavas were killed, and then he also lost his son in the battle. You know, and you know how when Krishna told Yudhishthira, he said, tell Dronacharya Aswatthama is dead, because when he hears his son is dead, he's finished. He won't be able to fight. So these are Kshatriyas being overwhelmed by the loss of their son. But one thing we see with Arjuna, his son died, but he kept fighting. He wasn't over. I mean, obviously you're overwhelmed, but this is what tolerance is all about. That something disastrous happens, but tolerance kicks in, and we don't give up our service. You know the story of Prabhupada in the early days when in ISKCON he was trying to start a movement and nothing was happening, and he was going down to the docks because apparently he had a return ticket. Yeah, he must have had a return ticket to go back on the boat, on the ship. So sometimes he'd get discouraged and he'd go to the dock just to see when the next ship is. I'm so discouraged I could take the next. What time is the next one? It's not that he was actually going to do it. It's like sometimes someone becomes suicidal and they say, Prabhu, I'm worried about you. You say, don't worry, I'm too chicken to do it. I just feel like doing it, but I'll never do it. So it was kind of like that with Prabhupada, contemplating it, but I'm not going to go back. But there was so much Prabhupada had to tolerate, like a million things he had to tolerate to do his service. But that's what it means to be a great devotee. Will not be. No matter what happens, they'll continue. So we should follow that example. No matter what happens, we should continue. That's tolerance. It's not easy, but never give up your service, no matter what. Now, here's a thought to sober you. In this world, we experience trouble and we experience loss. And you know how we lose, like we're saying, my grandmother died. I was very close to her. It's very painful, yes. But when you die, you lose all your grandmothers, all your grandfathers, all your parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, your car, your home, your favorite shoes, your favorite mridanga, your super harmonium that you just paid $800, well, in Canadian dollars, like $1,200 for, and your super phone and everything, you lose it all. So how can you handle that? That's, we can hardly handle losing one thing. And how can you handle losing everything? Well, here's an insider's power secret. If you learn tolerance now, in the face of difficulty, you will be so practiced that at the time of death, it'll be, I don't want to say easy, but I will say easy. Because when you practice something, it becomes easy, right? If you're, like you can do something, everyone's saying, wow, how do you do that? That's amazing. And you're thinking, it's easy. Because you practiced since you're 5. So it's easy. But it's not really easy, but for you it's easy because you practice. So Krishna makes the world a practice ground for tolerance because there's so many things we have to tolerate. Right? You're living in the ashram, you have to tolerate the other people. It's easier to live alone. There's another person, they don't think like you, they don't get up at the same time you do, they don't go to bed at the same time. They're in a different universe in the way they think, and you have to be tolerant. And then you go outside and you go to work. If you go to work, there's more to tolerate. Winter comes, more to tolerate. It's a busy street, loud, noisy, more to tolerate. Right? We're down here in a room with no windows. It feels like we're in prison. Tolerate that, whatever. Sabji had no spice, I have to tolerate that. Sabji had too much spice, I have to tolerate that. It's like everywhere you look, the world is arranged for you to tolerate, but that's good. Because that's how you become Krishna conscious. So Krishna creates situations for us to practice. And, there are so many problems in this world. You know how when these problems come, sometimes you think, Krishna, why? Why are these problems? I'm your devotee. I'm trying to be your devotee. Why problems? Krishna says, because you took a material body. Why did you, if you don't want problems, why did you take a material body? And if you don't want any more problems, then go back to Godhead. I will not give you any problems there. But when you're here, there will be problems. Material body is a problem by nature. Material mind is a problem by nature. And I have to give you some problems to strengthen you. So rather than complain, just like deal with it and learn how to be tolerant. Not easy, is it? Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it feels impossible, but at least remember, Arjuna, he didn't give up his service. Prabhupada said he's a father. His son died. He's certainly affected, but he was able to do his service. That's the important principle. And we can think of Prabhupada and so many difficulties he had, and he continued to do his service. These are real role models. And all the devotees that started this movement with practically nothing and going out around the world, and there was so much to tolerate. But that's what we do. So, what do we do now? Take questions or go to the next verse or both? You always do a bunch of verses, right?
Yeah, we do questions at 8:15 or 8:20ish.
Okay, so you want to do the next verse? Is that what you do? You try to do 3 verses or something?
We read like some translations, like 5-10 translations,
Oh.
and then we choose a verse to talk upon.
Oh, okay. We just chose this verse. So, should I read the next 4 translations?
Yes, we can read some verses.
So this is text 60. Oh, Vasudeva, you may take back your child and go home. I have no fear of your first child. It is the 8th child of you and Devaki I am concerned with, because that is the child by whom I am destined to be killed. Text 61. Vasudeva agreed and took his child back. But because Kamsa had no character and no self-control, Vasudeva knew that he could not rely on Kamsa's word. Text 62, 63. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, including his associate cowherd men and their wives, were none but denizens of the heavenly planets. Well, Maharaj Parikshit, best of the descendants of Bharata, and so too were the descendants of the Vrishni dynasty headed by Vasudeva and Devaki, and the other women of the dynasty of Yadu, the friends, relatives, and well-wishers of both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, and even those who externally appeared to be followers of Kamsa were all demigods. Well, the residents of Vrindavan came down and then as demigods and then came to earth. So that's confusing. You say, well, it also depends how you translate demigods, but Nanda's Krishna's eternal father. How can he be a demigod? Well, that's how they came down. Read one more. That makes 5, right? Once the great saint Narada approached Kamsa and informed him of how the demoniac persons who were a great burden on the earth were going to be killed. Thus Kamsa was placed into great fear and doubt. That's Narada Muni agitating the situation. So, verse 61 says Vasudeva did not trust Kamsa. And Chanakya Pandit, who was a Brahmin, Prabhupada called a moralist, said, if someone cannot control their senses, you cannot trust them. So that's why Kamsa, we see Kamsa was going back and forth in his decisions. I mean, someone who is willing to kill their sister, could you trust them? I don't think so. There's a saying, you don't trust a person because of what they say, you trust a person because of what they do. So watch what they do. Don't hear what they say, that doesn't prove anything. Anybody can say anything, watch what they do. So you look at Kamsa, what did Kamsa do? You know what he did. So, yes. Vasudeva was very intelligent. So intelligent he convinced Kamsa to not kill his sister. And as Kamsa rightly pointed out, he's trustworthy because he keeps his promise. So Kamsa trusts Vasudeva, but Vasudeva doesn't trust Kamsa. So, if you want someone to trust you, you have to keep your word. And if you don't, then it's likely that they won't trust you because you'll remember. I don't know if I can trust you. Last time you said you would do this and you didn't. So maybe they give you a second chance. And if you still are not trustworthy, it's hard for people to, isn't it? There's a deeper problem, which is more interesting. If I tell you I'm going to do something and I don't do it, and you say, Prabhu, you told me you're going to do that. Why didn't you do it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes. So I promised you now twice. First I promised you and I didn't do it. You asked me why I didn't do it, and then I promised you a second time I'll do it tomorrow. And then I don't do it tomorrow. What's happening there? Obviously you're losing trust in me, but believe it or not, consciously or not, you're losing trust in yourself. So some people will not make vows or promises because they don't trust themselves, because there's so many times they broke their own promises. And you will tend to break promises you make to yourself more than the promises you make to others. So you don't want to come to a position where you don't even trust yourself anymore because you've broken so many promises. And then you come to the position, if you don't trust yourself, you won't make any. And we make vows in Krishna consciousness. And so vows are important. But, if you make a vow and you can't even take yourself seriously, then it's like you lose your self-esteem by saying you're going to do something, you don't do it. You lose your confidence. You lose your sense of value. So that's bad, isn't it? to not even value yourself. Yeah. What you find amongst Kshatriyas especially is that when they give their word, that's it. Isn't it? I said that's what, and sometimes you give your word and then what you have to do now is not good for you. Maybe in the situation when you gave your word, there wasn't a negative consequence, but sometimes there is. And then unless there's a higher purpose, you'll have to follow your word and suffer. That's a whole discussion whether you should, what is the highest level of honesty. So there, did you see that the thieves come, did you see where they went? No, I didn't. They're hiding in your room. You say no. Because it's a higher principle. But for Brahmins, honesty is important. It's there in Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Yes.
Sometimes we have services, we think that, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and we tell it to the people as well. But it's just sometimes not in our hands. Let's say we need permission from management.
Oh, that's different. Well, if you promise to do something, don't promise unless you know you can do it. So if you're not, you say, if so-and-so gives me the time, I'll do it. I have to ask him. Because otherwise you're letting people down. That's not good. In your culture, Indian culture, you have great respect for superiors. And you want to make them happy. So sometimes you tell them, I'll do something, you don't even know if you're going to do it. But that's like proper etiquette. Right? In the West, you'll say, I would like to do it, but I don't know if I can. I have to find out. Our culture is just say what is. Your culture is say what will make them feel good, isn't it? At least that's my experience of being in India. So many people tell me so many things they're going to do for me. If they did it, I'd probably be a billionaire now. And I'd probably be, like on TV shows all over India, et cetera, et cetera. I think they genuinely mean it, like they want to please you because you're someone they respect. But it's not always realistic what they're saying. It's just a desire, It's like saying to you, I want to give you $1 million. Well, I like you so much, but I don't have $1 million, so I can't. But if I did, I would. And you're thinking, oh, Mahatma Prabhu is going to give me $1 million before he leaves. Yeah, that's not proper. So sometimes Prabhupada would ask the devotee, can you do this or that? And they want to do it, but for some reason they can't. So they would tell Prabhupada, they want to say no, but they don't want to say yes and not do it. Because I think that happened. I can't remember the story. Someone said yes and they couldn't do it. And Prabhupada said, did you do it? And they said, no, Prabhupada, because of whatever reason. But it was a valid reason. And Prabhupada said, well, why didn't you tell me? You should have told, I don't want, because I would have asked someone else to do it. So it's not that, thank you. Delicious. I'm trying to fake myself out. This tastes horrible. But sometimes you have to. It's not that bad. You have to tolerate it. This was actually planned in this class to do a visual for you. How to tolerate. We could pass it around. I don't know if you could all tolerate it. One common thing is you're in a group and you're planning something and someone says, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then you come back next week, because it was supposed to be done that week, and you say, did you do it? And they say, no because this, that, and the next thing. So sometimes there's emergencies you didn't plan. But you could also, if there's emergency, you could call and say, you know, we just had an accident in the family and I'm not going to be able to do it. At least, rather than come and everyone's expecting you've done it and then say, I couldn't do it for this reason. Or you just don't do it. So better don't say you're going to do it. It's better to say I'm not going to do it and don't do it than to say I'm going to do it and don't do it. So I'm sorry, I have a finals this week, or you know, we're doing double shifts at work, I won't be able to do it. Maybe I can do it later or something. Self-honesty is very difficult. And one of the reasons is sometimes someone will say, you shouldn't do this, or you do this, and you'll say, I don't do that. You won't realize you do it. Or someone might say, you have this nature or this quality, and you'll say, no, I don't. And you'll say that because you don't realize, because you've never looked at yourself that way. And one of the reasons, maybe the main reason, because we all have false ego. False ego means an identity. And so if I say, Damayanti, you know, you're really nasty, and Damayanti thinks she's like sweeter than sugar, it's not going to make sense to her. So your first response is like, that's not true. You know, I'm very sweet. And it's possible she's sweet with 99% of the people, but I just saw one interaction that wasn't sweet. And it's not going to make sense to her. And the false ego is always defending our identity. So sometimes it's difficult to see what's wrong with us because the false ego thinks, oh, you're great. And it's hard to acknowledge faults, because who wants to look at their faults, right? But that's part of the process. That's what it means to be humble. And, you know, if you have low self-esteem, you know, looking at your faults is really hard. But that's one of the meanings of introspection, that you can see what you need to improve in yourself without becoming discouraged. Because the problem is, you see a fault, you become discouraged. But you have to be able to see it without becoming discouraged. You have to think, oh, good, I found a fault, now I can work on it. Because if I didn't find it, I couldn't work on it. Everyone else would see it except me. It's the hardest for us to see it, isn't it? If someone else has the same fault you have, it's very easy to see it. But seeing inside ourselves, that's difficult. But it's necessary. Isn't it? And, you know, humility is essential. And humility means to understand where we're at. It's not that we dwell all day on our faults and walk around depressed. But the main point is, if there's something to be improved and you don't know what it is, you can't improve it. It's pretty simple, right? So that would be a form of self-honesty. Another reason we may want to pretend is because we want people to appreciate us. So we may pretend we don't have faults, look good, and people will like us and appreciate us and will feel good. But that's not really the goal of a devotee, to impress other people. The goal of a devotee is to respect other people. So we have it all backwards. We want respect for ourselves, but devotees meant to respect others. Non-devotees, their goal is to get respect. Devotees' goal is to give respect. Non-devotees' goal is to find fault with everybody else. Devotees' goal is to see what they need to improve in themselves. It's all backwards, isn't it? That's why it's so hard, because we're conditioned backwards. So you hear this class, you go, yeah, that makes sense. And then you go about your day and you see you're all backwards, because we've been backwards for forever. You've been back, you know what a habit's like, right? You try to change it, but if the habit's very strong, it's like, it's so hard to change. You always default back to it. And so conditioning means our material habits from millions of lifetimes. And It's a bit frustrating, but what else can you do? You have to recondition yourself and you have to practice new habits. That's how you overcome old habits. So we learn what we should do, we try. Conditioning will throw us off. Keep trying. Go home and cry, I failed. Keep trying. And as you practice a new habit after a while, and as you advance in devotional service, then after a while, respecting, appreciating others becomes more natural. Looking for respect for yourself becomes more unnatural, less likely. It's something you're not trying to do. So that'll happen, but you have to work on it. Yes?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I just had a question. You mentioned about losing trust on yourself, you know.
Yes.
Sometimes, and I see that an example with me is, for example, let's say I try to get up at a certain time, but I'm not able to do that at all, and you just lose trust in yourself.
Yeah.
How do you gain back that trust? Because it's so difficult to come back to square one.
Well, don't promise yourself you're going to do something unless you know you can do it. We just gave a class on vows. And we made a distinction between a brat and a sankalpa. And I don't even know if there's a technical distinction, but I made one. So this is my distinction. When you make a brat, that's it. You have to do it. There's no turning back. But when you make a sankalpa, I think that English translation is intention. Is that, how do you understand sankalpa? As an intention?
Yes.
Yeah. As opposed to a brat, which is more than an intention. It's like, so we did a beautiful exercise, and we said, what are all the things you'd like to be doing that you're afraid to make a vow to do? So you don't get discouraged. I made a vow, I didn't follow it. So you write those down as sankalpas. I would like to do that. And then for every sankalpa you make, then you have to figure out how to motivate yourself to do it. And sometimes I think the problem is we make a sankalpa that actually we can't do. Like maybe physically you need a certain amount of sleep, and so you can't actually do it. So that's, and then you get frustrated that you can't do it, but it's like you can't physically or mentally do it. It's not possible. So you want to make sure you don't make a sankalpa for something that you'll be eternally frustrated with, because I want to be a straight A student, but I never was and I never will be, because I'm not good in math or I'm not good in science. So if I make some intention to be a straight A student, I could drive myself crazy. I'd have to spend lots of money on tutors. I'd have to be studying 20 hours a day. So also, you have to consider if you even want to make that intention. Because it's like a good intention objectively for everybody. But for you personally, maybe it's not. It's like, you're an athlete, you're not a student. That's what's important to you, to be active. Maybe you should become a coach, a physical education coach, not a scientist. No, but all my brothers are scientists, and my parents said, you're an idiot if you're not a scientist. Then you have to look at that. Otherwise you frustrate yourself. But if it is something that you want to do, then you have to make it important to you. If something you can do, it has to become important. Because, as you know, you never miss prasadam, because prasadam is important. If prasadam was not important, you'd miss it all the time, right? Because we miss things that aren't important, and we don't miss things that are important. So if you want to do something, you have to make it important in your mind and heart. Maybe not the same way that's important for someone else, but important for you. So if you want to get up early, I have something that I've conditioned myself to do or think. I lived in Vrindavan, I lived in Mayapur. And Mayapur is like Brahma Murta hour 24/7. It's like anytime you chant in Mayapur, Vrindavan, it's like chanting here in the morning. It's so special. It's more than, it's transcendental. But But Brahma Muhurta is the closest thing that we have to being in the Dham because it's the most sattvic time of day. So, if within your heart and mind you develop an affinity, an attachment, an attraction for that time of day, it's going to be easier to get up, obviously, because you gravitate towards what you're attracted to. So, if you get up in the morning and you're chanting, maybe you all start chanting at a certain time and you decide, I want to chant earlier. How do I get up? And you think, well, I could chant 8 rounds before everyone else even gets up. And that would help me so much in my Krishna consciousness. And if that becomes important to you, and you look at that and think, wow, that'd be amazing, I'd love to do that, probably you're going to be able to do it, at least more easily. But if you don't have that desire and you're pushing yourself to try to get up earlier, you're solely working on willpower, and most people don't have a lot of that. People have willpower when they're up against the wall, right? You got to pay your rent. You got a lot of willpower to study. You got a goal to achieve that's forced upon you, so that you'll have willpower. Because if you don't do this, you'll suffer. That's a different kind of thing. So most people don't have that. I'm going to get up 3 o'clock every morning. I don't care when I go to sleep. Yes. But if you have something that attracts you to the early morning and say, oh, this Brahma Muhurta, it's so beautiful. I want to be up at that time. I don't want to be sleeping on it. Or I have some goal. I really want to study this, and I can't figure out when I'm going to study it. And I can see my whole life going by never studying it unless I get up at this time. And that whatever it is I want to study, it's so beautiful, it's so attractive, I have such a strong desire. I have something really interesting that I talk about in the japa workshop. Many, many devotees, they have difficulty with their japa. It's not a pleasurable experience, it's more like a duty. You need to do it. Let's do it, let's get it over with. Finally finish my rounds. Sigh of relief. Don't have to do that for another 20 hours. So, if that's how you feel about japa, well, you won't feel that way later. By Sunday night, you won't feel that way at all. But if that's how you feel about it, why would you want to get up early? Because the first thing you're going to do is chant when you get up. And if you don't like chanting, it's like, It's like you have to go to work in the morning. You hate your job, and the alarm goes off, got to go to work. But if you love your work, it's like, yeah, I can't wait. You jump out, right? So, if you want to get up early, you better like the things you do after you get up. So, you want to cultivate an attraction for all these things, especially for chanting. And that can make a difference, because you think, oh, I love chanting early in the morning, and now it's time to get up. And if I get up, it's going to be really good. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, when you're doing service and you're giving your best endeavor, how do you know you're seeking encouragement, looking for respect, or you're sharing something, a special moment with like a mentor or a peer? How do we draw the lines between what's our intent?
You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You ever said something? Like maybe I talk to you and I go, what's going on here? And say, well, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, we're doing that. And you might be thinking, you're just answering my question. Or you might be thinking, he'll probably be inspired by it. But did you drop in anything like, and I do this part of the service? Why did you say that? Maybe you just want me to know, that's fine. Maybe you want to impress me. Maybe you want to get an applause. That you would only know. I mean, other people might be able to feel, I feel like you're proud and you didn't need to say that. They could be wrong, they could be right. But you have to ask yourself, am I boasting? Did I say that to glorify myself? And if you don't know, I would guess that it happens here and there. I'm not saying it happens all the time. But sometimes you'll just catch yourself telling somebody what you're doing, and after you say it, you ask yourself, why did I need to say that? I didn't really need to say that. Was I trying to impress them? And probably the answer is, yeah. Because we as conditioned souls, we like to impress people. We want to be accepted, we want to be loved, and we think to be accepted and loved, I need to impress you, which is not true. We don't love people because they impress us. We love people because they're friends, and they're honest, and they're open, and they're not trying to dominate us and show off. But we might think we won't be accepted unless we show off. We show people our good qualities, and and you want to be a good example also. So, or you might tell me, I want you to know I do this and that. Not to glorify yourself, just because you want me to be happy. That's okay. But it's not always like that, and if it's not, you just, maybe you don't know. Maybe you ask yourself the question, did I say that to glorify myself? And your answer is, I don't know. I think if you said it solely to tell me about it, you would know. That's why you said it. If you don't know, probably, maybe you're just being humble. But anyway, the false ego is subtle, and like we're saying, being introspective is not easy. Like who wants to walk around thinking, oh, I just said that to glorify myself? But in our humility, just to make you feel better, in our humility workshop, we ask devotees, have you ever done service with some motive to be honored for it, to be recognized, appreciated? Have you ever done that? And some devotees said, I've never not done that. It's like that's how pride works. You think about it and you say, no, I did it. I did it to please Guru and Krishna, but somewhere in my mind I was hoping people would recognize me. So that motive is there. And so you realize, there's a big motive to be honored. And it's not what bhakti is about, but that's what we are. We're conditioned souls. And if we're going to value it, if we're going to understand it and work with it, we have to acknowledge it. So I can't acknowledge it for you. I'm just throwing this out for you. Ask yourself. Yes.
Yesterday at the yoga studio program, a girl asked a question about pure desire, and your answer to her was that some part that I remember was that until you get to that stage of pure desire, your motive can be, you can choose the motive of your service. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, there's why I do something is not always the same as the material desires that I have in my heart, right? So I was giving an example let me give an example. Vishaka invited me here to come. She wanted, and I was supposed to come last year and I couldn't, and maybe she invited me a few times before that. I said, I'm already in Canada, so okay, we will come. And I think, I want to come here and help you all improve your japa. That's why I'm here. There's no other reason, right? And it doesn't mean I don't have any material desires, Do I like it when people give me donation? I like it. Do I like it when people glorify me? I like it. Do I like it when I get nice prasadam? Yes. Do I like it when people take care of me and tell me, you're so funny and you lead nice kirtans? Do I like all that? Of course, I'm a conditioned soul. It's not why I came here. I didn't come for that. I can't say if someone honors, I don't want to be honored. I don't come here to be honored, but I can't say if I'm honored that I don't like it. Right? Or you give me good prasadam, I don't like it. Or you give me a donation, I don't like it. It's not why I came here. So we all have desires, but we try not to act on them. And you're going to lead a kirtan, and somewhere in your mind you're thinking, well, it'd be nice if people would appreciate me, or my Guru Maharaj is coming and I want him to see that I lead nice kirtan. Or there's like kirtan mela, and there's 4,000 people and they're all looking at me and if I lead a nice kirtan, then, you know, I get on the list as like the top 10 kirtaniyas in North America or something, you know. That could all be going through your mind, but then you sit down to lead the kirtan and you just like pray, Krishna, let me just chant for your pleasure, like I'm the only one in this room. I don't even notice there's anyone here. So that's your motive in doing it. But because we're conditioned souls, we can't say we're free of other desires. We just do not allow ourselves to bring those desires into our service. I'm going to do this, Krishna, for your pleasure. Even though I like to be glorified, but that's not why I'm going to do it. You know, and the beauty of this is that as a conditioned soul, you don't just move in the ashram and all your material desires go away. They're still there, right? But the beauty of this is you can do pure devotional service now, even though you have those desires, because you're not acting on that, right? You see something, all right, today's Ekadasi, you see some donut in the restaurant, like, I love donuts, it's my favorite donut, you know, and they go, oh, it's Ekadasi, I can't eat it. It's something like that. It's like, I want it, but I can't have it, so I'm not going to go for it. It's not proper. So we're all like that. So all of you can do pure devotional service. If you serve Krishna without any desire for anything for yourself. And people will say, no, I can't do that, I have so many desires. And I will say, no, you can do that. I'm not saying you don't have desires, just don't bring them in. And they might say, yeah, but they come up. And say, well, if they come up, just throw them away. And try to, if they come up, try to focus on why you're doing this. You're doing this to please Guru and Krishna. Focus on that. And so the beauty of that is you can do that, even though you're not pure. And then you can be engaged in pure devotional service. Because that's what pure devotional service is. I mean, there are other higher levels of pure devotional service, but that's a baseline level. Anya vilasito shunya, that verse. Make your other desires zero. But it's explained, it's motive. It's the motive. The motive of what you do. Why are you doing this? For you, Krishna, for you, Guru Maharaj, for your pleasure. You can praise me, you cannot praise me. I can be the number one devotee, I can be the least, I can get accolades, I can get nothing, I do it for your pleasure. Even though I want all those things. But I want all those things, but I'm not going to allow that to be my motive, because that will contaminate my service, right? So that's very important. And you know, it's really interesting, there's a verse in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. And the devotee says, I have so many material desires. Maybe Krishna, it's your desire, you know, I don't know what it is. But I'm not going to give up devotional service even because of those. So it's kind of like he's making a distinction. It's like, in this box are my material desires, and this box is my devotional service. And because this box is filled up, I'm not going to allow it to affect this box. I can keep them in separate boxes. So he's saying, maybe I just have to, you know, take birth again. Maybe these material desires they're just there. Maybe it's your desire that they're there. I don't know. But in spite of that, I'm not going to give up serving you. So those desires are not going to affect my desire to serve you, which is so beautiful, isn't it? Because it's like you can take your desire to serve Krishna and you can protect it from your material desires, because that's what he's saying. Even though I have all these material desires, I'm not allowing them to affect my desire to serve you. That's beautiful. Because otherwise you get discouraged. I have so many material desires, I'm so useless. But that's okay. You just don't give in to them and give in to your desire to serve and keep that desire strong. It's when you give in to the desires, then it's going to underscore or negatively impact your desire. But if you tolerate it, okay, I have all these desires, but I am focused on my desire to serve. Purely.
When you say that you give in to those desires, then it's going to become negative. What do you mean by giving in to those desires?
Stop tolerating and acting on them. Or stop being aware of them. Sometimes you might act on them, but if you're aware of it, and you're aware that was bad, and I don't want to do that, then you're okay. It's when you're not aware of it, you know. Sometimes it's subtle, we're not aware. Like I'm saying, you ask, why did I do that? And then you realize, oh, I did that because I wanted to bring attention to myself. But if I didn't ask the question, I wouldn't have realized that. So that's good that you recognize it. Now you can, do something. I'm not going to give in to that anymore. As conditioned souls, these things always come up, especially the pride. Because pride is what keeps us here. So we're all, grounded in pride. So naturally, there's, we want other people to see what we're doing. We want other people to appreciate us. But we have to work on it. Because that's not what bhakti's about. There's a book called Brihat Bhagavatamrita. And in the book, Narada Muni goes to different devotees. And he's trying to find out who's got the most mercy from Krishna. So he starts with a Brahmin. The Brahmin's like, no, it's not me. He says, go to, I forget who he tells him to go. He says, go to the next devotee. Eventually they get to Indra. Indra, no, it's not me. Go to Shiva. Shiva, no, it's not me. Go to Brahma. No, it's not me. Go to the Prahlad. No, it's not me. Every one of them said it's not me because of something they did wrong. Everyone admitted, no, this is my limitation. Indra's like, look I fought with Krishna, I offended him. Brahma, I stole the cows. Shiva's, I was Shankar. I was preaching impersonalism. And each one, it's like, wow. Nobody thinks they're the best. They're always saying, go to him, he's the best. That's the attitude of devotee. You can't imitate it, but at least you can recognize that's the goal. And you can recognize how far off I am, So I want the recognition for myself. I should be seeing others.
How can we balance the desire of serving, but also knowing our inability to do so?
Certain services you're not good at.